Y'all put your hands together for Taylor Poindexter.
All right, howdy folks. So my name is Taylor Poindexter, and today I will be talking to you about infusing psychological safety into your teams. Now, because I'm a manager, I will be talking about it mostly from a manager's position, but even as a team member, you can infuse psychological safety into your team with a couple tweaks. All right, first things first, I often find that people think that my last name is fake or some kind of software engineering joke. I assure you, it is my last name and not some 80s joke. All right. They did such a good job introducing me. I'll skip these. But yeah, Spotify and Black Co Collective. Okay, so who here has seen the movie Matilda? Nice. All right, so it's one of my favorite movies ever, but I rewatch it all the time. But I couldn't help but realize that Matilda was actually lacking psychological safety when I rewatched the movie as I prepared for this presentation. For those that have not seen the movie, it's basically about a brilliant young lady that's born into a family that does not appreciate her for any of her intelligence. And she actually has superpowers and they don't even realize it. And so they basically want her to be a wormworth, scam people, not worry about intellect, and watch TV. Matilda ends up finding a teacher who is the first adult to nurture her intelligence and help her spread her wings. And she actually asks the teacher to adopt her. The teacher says yes. Matilda leaves her family to go live with the teacher and has a beautiful life. And I could not help but also realize this happens with a lot of teams, right? Somebody feels like they're not being heard, they're not being appreciated for their skills, even though they have a ton of them. And so they leave and go find a place where they can be nurtured and cared for. Okay, so how would I describe psychological safety? I describe psychological safety as a person knowing they can be vulnerable and or make a mistake without fear of negative consequence, in turn, allowing them to feel accepted and respected. So why should you care? There are a ton of talks at this presentation, and I'm just one of them. So why should you actually care about psychological safety? I'm actually realizing, oh, it's fine. I don't have my speaker notes, so we're gonna wing some of this. We'll be all right. So I think that you should care about psychological safety because it helps remove inefficiencies from a lot of your processes. Let's think about one scenario where I, as a manager, implement a process and then I realize that, I think that things are going well, but my team feels comfortable coming to me and telling me, actually, you know what, Taylor? I would change a couple of these things this way to make it happen. And in that scenario, I am able to remove those inefficiencies and allow my team to get more of the wings underneath their wings and push forward. Secondly, with psychological safety, your team also feels that they know that their opinions will be heard. And so imagine also another scenario where you know that your team is not actually caring about what you have to say, and so you stop contributing. And then when that happens, all it leads back to is the people that feel comfortable sharing their opinions, having their voices heard. Whereas if you have a team of 8 people and you all are brain melding and helping each other push forward, you can continue to innovate. And I believe that innovation is what sets companies apart. So even though managers are in control, by being able to listen to your team and allowing them to share their ideas and allow them to feel more psychologically safe by asking questions, you allow your company to bring that innovation. All right, so how do we actually infuse it into our teams? First and foremost, I like to focus on normalizing vulnerability and embracing humility. I know a lot of managers are afraid that by admitting that they don't know things, that they will become across as incompetent to their team. I could not disagree more. I know that as a manager and at any position within your company, you want to make sure that you have the foundation of skills to do your job, but at the core of everything we do, I truly believe our job is to find answers as a team. So within my team, I have no problem admitting that I don't know something and then striving to find those answers as we work together through it as a team. And then that in turns allows my team to also feel comfortable admitting that they don't know things, reducing the likelihood that they're pushing forward with uncertainty or lack of clarity and potentially creating issues down the line. Next, I like to focus on building trust. Paul, who is the head of industry at Google, once said, "There is no team without trust," and I could not agree more. Especially within teams where we're moving fast, if your team trusts you, then they know that they can come to you with anything and you'll at least try to fix it. And I think that that is an amazing thing to have within a team. And so there are two ways that I try to build trust within a team. One, as a manager down to my team, but then also amongst the team members. So as a manager to the team, I like to start by asking questions. Questions in meetings to let them know that I also lack some clarity and I would like to get some. And again, that allows them to realize that it is also okay for them to ask those questions. But then also, I like to ask them how I can help, and then I do it. And for some of you, this may be a bit of a newsflash, but I am not the CEO at Spotify, so I can't do every single little thing. But the very fact that I even asked my team and I tried often means a lot to them as well. And if I can't accomplish what they asked me to, I'll at least report back and tell them why I wasn't able to do so. And then so amongst the team members as well, I also like to create moments for them to bond with one another. So it could be, let's say, pair programming, mobbing sessions, so they are able to share their challenges and their successes together, but then also creating other touch points that are outside of work. So it could be team bonding events. I also recently did a trust building activity that was actually very fruitful for the team, that I don't think that I would have done a couple of years ago, but it was actually amazing, especially for a team that started remote and didn't have those touch points. And the reason why I think these things matter is because imagine a situation where you're on a road and you're cut off by somebody, right? Immediately that person is a freaking idiot, okay? But then as you pull next to them, you realize it's actually your best friend. Or somebody maybe in your neighborhood that you speak to all the time and you previously knew them as somebody to be kind. Then you're able to cut them a bit more slack and maybe assume that maybe they're running late, maybe there's an emergency. And being able to have those chances where they are willing to, or you are willing to, cut somebody some slack, especially when you're communicating mostly over Slack, can help the team feel much more trusting with each other. And I find that that is also very important as we work together to reach solutions as a team. Next, I like to lead, not control. I have also found that a lot of managers like to be in control of every single little thing because they fear that if they are not in control, things are gonna go wrong. But the funny thing about it is, that's just life. So even if I make every single little decision within my team, something is still gonna go wrong. I hired smart people for a reason, right? So I would be a fool to not listen to them. And obviously we know, mama didn't raise no fool, so I listen to them all the time. And then also, I basically set boundaries and then let them know what my expectations are of them. And then as I see them get momentum, I loosen those boundaries and I let them, carry the momentum even further, sometimes even further than I've even ever imagined. Some of the best processes or changes I have made within my team has come sometimes from the most junior person because she knows that I care and I will listen. And if I think it's feasible or I think that there's even a small chance of it improving the team, I'm gonna give it a try. Oops, sorry, I skipped too fast. Next, I've touched on this a little bit, but asking questions. So again, I ask questions in the regular team meetings, questions that bring clarity about the technical implementations we are trying to create, but then I also ask my team questions about how I can manage them better. Well, that's one of the questions right there. How can I manage them better? What are their happies and crappies since the last time we spoke? How can I better make sure that their work can more efficiently be done? Any of these things in the day-to-day interactions that we have, let them know, one, that I not only care enough to ask them, but I also respect their opinions and I want them to be happy. So even if there is a time where maybe I'm not asking the question that leads to what's on their mind, if I ask a couple questions and they think of something else, they'll let me know that actually, Taylor, you could make my life better by changing this. And then I'll do it if I'm able to. Next, good old one-on-ones. I know people often skip these, but especially in the remote world, I would very much encourage you not to do so. It's a good touch point to build a rapport with your team and even amongst one another. So my engineers have one-on-ones with each other just to kind of keep up to date with what's going on and help each other through any challenges that they may be having. And so also, again, I always ask them what their happies and their crappies are, maintaining those touch points at a cadence that it works for them, and also continuing to improve any processes that they mention. And this one is my absolute favorite, building gratitude into the fabric of the team. So I like to create a dedicated time for the team to talk about the things that they appreciate that their teammates have done, but this can also be within day-to-day interactions. So for the dedicated time, basically for those who do Agile in our retros, I have a kudos column, and then so everybody basically shouts out things that they have appreciated that folks have done within the last sprint. And the great thing for that as a manager is that I realize that my team does a lot of amazing things that I just don't see, especially in the remote world, because in person you can see people huddling at a desk, you can see them talking and things like that, but I miss a lot of that. And so I'm able to remind myself to never take my team for granted and appreciate them for all of the amazing things that they do, even if I may not see it. But then also as a leader, I have no problem. If I see something that somebody on my team is doing and I appreciate it, I have no problem telling them in that moment how much I appreciate it, publicly or privately, and that also lets them know that I appreciate them. Because again, I also think another reason that some teams experience attrition is because, I'm sure a lot of us have seen this, somebody becomes a high performer, and then in the beginning they're getting a ton of praise, everybody's patting them on the back, but then when you're operating at that level for an extended period of time, that is no longer high performance, now it's your norm, and you stop getting that praise, but you're still expected to do all that work. That breeds resentment, and then eventually the person gets fed up, leaves the company, and obviously that is exactly what we do not want. So I always try to let my team know that I appreciate everything that they do. This one happens to be my least favorite, but I do think that it is important, honest and direct feedback. I think it is much easier if we've done a good job with the aforementioned things, building that gratitude and that trust within the team, so that my team knows that when I am talking to them about these things, I genuinely care about them, and I'm only telling them because I want them to be able to improve and reach the levels that they want to actually be able to reach. And I also emphasize that it always has to be done with respect, and also thinking about the fact, is there any measurable change that could happen from me giving this feedback? So I always ask myself before doing that direct feedback, and if it's something that they can't really change or something that kind of doesn't have a measurable improvement, I honestly just keep that to myself and save it so that I'm also not bombarding somebody with feedback that isn't really pertinent to their day-to-day lives. But then also with honest and direct feedback, you're also able to let the team know where they stand with you and where they stand with each other, which I also think is powerful and also, again, helps us remove those inefficiencies within the team. As much as I love psychological safety, I have sometimes seen people try to force it within their teams. So I also want to remind people to meet your team where they are. When I joined Spotify, I was actually joining a team as a manager for the very first time. And so I had to let them know that they can actually trust me by doing things through action and not just words. Because even myself in the beginning, I had forgotten that so many people have been burned by management, myself included. And so some people may be actually hesitant to trust you at first. That is okay. Just let them go at their own pace. Ask them if there are things that you can do to reassure them, and then do those things. And then after they see you doing that a series of times, they will likely start to trust you, and then you're able to breed psychological safety within your teams in a higher level. And next, even though we are all well-intentioned people, I don't always hit the mark. And so I also like to do these pulse checks. I ask myself, how do I want my team to feel? And then I ask them if they feel that way. Sometimes they don't. And so if they don't, that is also okay. And then I try to find ways to actually make sure that they do feel that way. So periodically doing the pulse checks to make sure that the psychological safety that you're trying to add to your team is actually working. And so you can catch me on the interwebs here, but also I want to thank you all for spending a little time with me. And I hope that you can realize what the benefits of actually infusing psychological safety into your teams are. And if you have any additional questions, I would love to answer them either in the Q&A or either on Twitter. Again, thank you for your time.